Okay, I noticed that nobody had commented or asked me any questions about chapter 11, which made me nervous. And I know last week you had your test, your lecture test, and your lab practical, so you were really busy studying for those. And the grades were actually pretty good. If you usually make A's or B's, you made an A or B, and so that was good news. So I'm going to do an extremely short video on chapter 11, just the highlights. If it's something that's easy that you can get on your own, then I'm going to let you do that. But some of the trickier parts to the physiology, I'll just review for you. I'm going to go fast, but you can pause or rewind or watch it later. So here's what I have with me. You need this revised study guide for test 5. Okay, this was in the announcements last week. So in the announcement that said the test is open and then ... after the test, this was attached, okay, to that message, to that announcement. So you have got to have this study guide. It's revised for the online test. And it goes through chapters 11, 12, and 13. And this is what you're going to use to basically fill all this out. This is going to be your notes and what you need to study, in addition to that SWAY presentation that was posted. Okay, so I've got my book out and I'm in chapter 11, and I'm just going to hit the highlights. I'm sorry, I have the smallest whiteboard ever. Okay, so when we look at the nervous system, which you should already know, it's divided up into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. And the central nervous system is composed of the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, but the peripheral nervous system is made up of everything else. That's all the other nerves that come out of the brain and cord. So nerves are just a bundle of neurons. Okay, so there are two places the nerves can originate from. They can either come out of the brain stem, which are called cranial nerves, and there's 12 pair of cranial nerves, or they're going to come out of the spinal cord, and these are called the spinal nerves, and there are 31 pair of those. And so the cranial nerves normally go into the face, the mouth, the shoulders, the head. They're going to be around the upper part of the body. The spinal nerves will go out to the rest of the body. And I say go out, that's not necessarily true. They're going out and they're coming in because they're sending out messages and they're bringing messages in to the central nervous system. Okay? The peripheral nervous system then is divided up into two divisions. There's a sensory division, which brings in information from either the external environment or from the body, okay? And then it sends signals out to effectors from the central nervous system, and that is called the motor portion of the peripheral nervous system. Okay, so the motor portion of the peripheral nervous system is made up of a somatic motor division, which we have control over. That would be like our muscles. So as I'm moving my arm to write these notes, I have voluntary control over that. That's the somatic motor division. But there's also another division that's not under our control, and it's called the autonomic division. Autonomic, it makes me think of automatic. It's involuntary. These are things we don't have control over. It's things like regulation of blood pressure and breathing rates and how fast our heart beats. And it's detecting things that need to be changed to be able to maintain homeostasis. Also under that is the enteric nervous system, which we don't talk a whole lot about here, but that controls everything about our gut. That's our digestive system, and that's also under that division. So those are the divisions of the nervous system. Now, we know already what a neuron is. So we've got our neuron. We should know about our neuron, right? Okay, so when we did histology and we did tissue types, we talked about nervous tissue. So here are the dendrites. They receive information. Here was the cell body. Here's the axon, which is going to transmit the action potential or the nerve impulse. Here's where the axons terminate into whatever they're terminating into. But there's actually 3 types of these neurons, okay, depending on which direction they move and what they do. So we have sensory neurons. Sensory neurons are going to detect changes in the environment and then send that signal to the central nervous system. So sensory neurons are also called afferent neurons. Afferent, and they're going to the central nervous system. Okay, when you get to the central nervous system, you've got to interpret the information that you just got. So that is done by another type of neuron called an interneuron or an association neuron, and this is going to be in the central nervous system. And in this neuron, everything, all of the norms for homeostasis are going to be in that area. And so if there needs to be a signal sent out to maintain homeostasis, say you got a signal coming in that said blood pressure's too high, okay, that is interpreted by the central nervous system, and then you're going to have a motor neuron send a signal out, a motor neuron, which is also called an efferent neuron. And it's going to send the signal out to an effector or to your target, which in this case could be like the smooth muscle of your blood vessel, telling that blood vessel to dilate. So if the blood vessel dilates, now you've got more room, the same amount of blood, your blood pressure drops. So what we had was a negative feedback loop. We reversed the stimulus. So this is carried out by these 3 different types of neurons, okay? But these neurons have to communicate with each other. So the sensory neuron has to form a synapse with the interneuron, which forms a synapse with the motor neuron, and the motor neuron goes out to your target, which most of the time is going to be a muscle or a gland, okay? I'm going to have to make another video because I got to clean the board and start over, so there may be multiple videos.